And I found in my experience that when clients saw me on the news or media, that they felt, well, it was easier conversion potential, but also like they felt like they knew me and they already felt like they trusted me and had a connection.
Yeah. Well, one, I feel like the media's credibility. Oh, wow, you were the one on the news talking about that. Like, they don't know
Yeah.
whether it's a PR firm or the reporter's your next door neighbor, but the fact
Yeah.
that you were on TV, probably present yourself well, educated, smart, strong, all of
Mhm.
that all builds credibility.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Ruby Powers, your host with Power Up Your Practice, and I'm excited to have Jennifer Kaplan, the president and CEO of Evolve PR and Marketing, Arizona's largest public relations firm. And she founded Evolve in 2010 and then has grown it to a nationally recognized agency representing 100 plus clients. With deep community roots and award winning leadership, she brings a fresh perspective on how law firms of any size can use PR to build credibility, manage reputation, and stand out in a crowded market. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us. So excited to have
Thank
you.
you. Yeah, Ruby, I'm excited to be here with you today. Thank you.
I first didn't, I felt like media was like unreachable, or even just, I didn't understand what PR really was when I was sort of a baby law firm owner. I started mine in '09, so we both have had our businesses for quite a while. Gone through time, difficult time.
Yes.
And but I was sharing before we got on here, like how much I really got deeper into it around 2018 when I was doing a lot more media interviews when my in the immigration space, and I think it's a valuable tool to have, and it could be used for a lot of different ways and purposes. So, for those who are listening who might not, there might be PR law firms, like, I mean, and maybe for the small solos, it doesn't make as much sense, maybe, but what are some of the ways law firms can use PR for their marketing and improving their image, or just getting across a message and advocacy?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, just to highlight, PR is earned media. So the way we work, not just Evolve, but the industry, is our clients pay us, and then we in turn secure those opportunities in all different mediums: TV, radio, print, online. So it's all earned. We don't turn around and say, oh, but it's going to cost you X dollars to have that opportunity. An advertisement would be different. So this is more
Mhm.
editorial, more thought leadership, something that's educational and informational, which is perfect for lawyers and doctors and realtors who are providing a service. And so with your example of immigration, and there could be so many other things that are being, passed through legislation or lobbyists are working on, and it could be with civil and criminal and family practice, that you can position yourself as that thought leader and expert to do an interview, to do an article, to talk about something that's, impactful and can really move the needle. And then ultimately, you're building your brand and your awareness to be that expert and go to on that topic. So, as you again said about the immigration example, then people might be like, oh, Ruby's doing that, or her firm is doing that. And you kind of become that go to and resource in that said topic or issue that might be highlighted through those interviews. So it helps build your brand, your awareness, and you kind of get to, showcase what you're doing. And we do like to use cases and specific examples when possible. So we can feature testimonials and real life situations that might be happening.
Um, One of the ways that I have seen it used was in 2018, when I was down at the border when family separation was happening, June 2018, and there was very few people who knew what was happening, and I was able to get a detention facility. I interviewed a whole bunch of parents, and I was working with the American Immigration Lawyers Association media advocacy group, and they put me in touch with a lot of different media outlets, from radio to print to TV. And it was fascinating how I was having like a crash course in how all these things worked. Everything from like off the record background, anything. I don't know if
Yep.
anything goes is a term, but
Yep.
anyway, but like, what are some of the What are some of the terminology I think that someone should know when they're working in with media?
Yeah, well, the good news is when we work with lawyers, they're the best at knowing, what to kind of say and not say in situations versus some of our, everyday clients. But you even just said one, off the record. I find that especially when we're dealing with our clients that we are collaborating with a law firm and maybe there's a case going on or a situation, we want to make sure that we are saying off the record when appropriate, because they'll adhere to that. And I think that that's really important, because if there is an investigation or a lawsuit going on, the last thing we want to do is go against the integrity of a case. um, but yeah, I mean, having prepared statements and kind of a less is more is often better. But in the case that you're talking about, you want to share what you're seeing, and the media really wants to hear it, because hopefully what you're doing, let's say, like you said, at the border, and what you're seeing and experiencing is going to create an impact, and hopefully a positive impact, in educating people. So I would say with something like that, that's more general. The other example I use is maybe when there is something a little bit more tight-lipped going
Mhm.
on. If you can share that, if you can feature some of the individuals who are down there, and you can visualize, the TV is a great, visual element of what is actually going on down there, and really impact that movement for people to see that, and maybe they can rally behind you know what you're trying to achieve, with I don't know the exact situation, but with what you're trying to do down there and advocate for, that media source can be really important, and can spread far and wide. And keep in mind too, that media, that interview, that article becomes an asset that then you can use in other platforms, whether you post it on social media, send it out to other, peers or legislators, or, others that will be impacted. So they might not have caught the article or the interview in that moment, but now you can use that as, leverage in other situations and other platforms to push out, um, to still have that narrative make an impact.
Uh, why is PR a core business strategy for law firms?
Well, I think that on the crisis side, we see a lot of it, but we also see it's a nice complement, I feel, to and not all law firms, so I'm not clumping this, but a lot do advertising, billboards, um, bus shelters, radio ads. I feel like the PR is a great complement to the paid ads, to really be more in that thought leadership. And because the ad is static, you just get that one, where the
Yeah.
interview is more interactive and you have more freedom to flow in a conversation and
Mhm.
share more. So I think that the paid ads, I feel like lawyers, tend to do a lot in the paid side. And it's a really nice compliment we see to our clients who are doing both. And yeah, I think there's a great benefit to that. They can hear their voice a little bit more, again, versus just the ad, which can be a little bit static. I also really like the fact that the lawyers can share a case, and that's where, oh, wow, these guys helped win this, or are helping to move an issue through a situation. And when you can share that story in more depth, I think it adds another layer to, like, the expertise that a lawyer has, than just, again, a flat interview. When they can interview someone who they've helped, that's
Mhm.
just even greater.
I remember hearing this term parasocial relationship from an influencer attorney friend, that when someone watches you on media or I don't know, TikTok or the media interview or whatever, that they feel like they know you. And I noticed that was happening when I was on a lot of media interviews. And then they felt like they knew me. And I mean, in a way, it's like the same thing with like actors and stuff like that. You sort of feel like you know their personality if they have a type that they always act as, as a character. But yeah, I could see why having that relation, it does create more of like a connection, it feels like, even if it's one sided. And I found in my experience that when clients saw me on the news or media, that they felt, well, it was easier conversion potential, but also like they felt like they knew me, and they already felt like they trusted me and had a connection.
Yeah. Well, one, I feel like the media's credibility. Oh, wow. You were the one on the news talking about that. Like, they don't know
Yeah.
whether it's a PR firm or the reporter's your next door neighbor, but the
Yeah.
fact that you were on TV, probably present yourself well, educated, smart, strong, all of
Mhm.
that, that all builds credibility when they see even a chef or whoever it is, then they go in the restaurant, just not to digress, but using that example, or they come into your firm, and then it's like, oh, that's the person I saw on TV. And so there's the credibility factor that I think is just perception is reality, is what I say. So if you were the one down at the border talking on that subject, oh my gosh, that's a big deal. And there's a saying that someone told me 30 years ago: people do business with people they like and people they trust. And so you just talk about
Mhm.
that trust and that connection. And so I feel like when they do hear your voice, oh wow, listen to her speak. And it builds a connection that then so probably even subconsciously, people don't even realize, like, wow, I like her. And, if I have that need, I'm going to call her. And same with, like I said, realtors, doctors, chefs. When these service oriented people get to put their name and face out there, it builds a credibility and it builds a trust among, the reader and the viewer. And from a legal perspective, I think that that's huge. A chef, you could walk in, have a so-so meal, walk out, that's no big deal. But the trusted, relationship with a lawyer is so much greater.
This episode is sponsored by Candle AI, the legal email assistant that helps legal teams spend less time on client emails. You heard me right, spending less time on emails. Candle AI works with both Gmail and Outlook, so you don't have to learn a new tool. And then it connects with popular case management systems like Clio, Filevine, INSSoom, and more to come. It instantly shows you your case and the client details the moment you open a client email, and right inside your inbox. Then that means less context switching and time spent jumping to different tabs to figure out what you need to respond. Candle can also draft context-aware responses to client emails and makes it easy to create, edit, and manage your email templates. If you want to save time and take back control of your inbox, check out Candle AI. I highly suggest it. Yeah, there's just so much so much responsibility. Is it? What was the thing? It was like CPA or lawyer, your religious, I don't know, leader,
Yeah.
or like the three, or is it your? I don't know. You need
No,
to
but
trust
you're right.
them.
Yes. And so the more touch points, like, oh, my neighbor referred Ruby, and then I happen to see Ruby on TV.
Mhm.
And that, it's all of that brings together. I believe there is a great impact to the advertising, to the social media, to, other things than just PR. Because I do feel like all of that brings together that whole perception of like, wow, I saw her there and I heard her there and I watched her
Mhm.
there and someone told me about her over there. And then it builds that momentum and you do become more of a go-to or a more recognizable person that people trust.
What are some of the common pitfalls that you've seen law firms make, and and how can they stand out with more of an authentic human story?
That's a great question. Well, I can say where I feel like they have done the best. And, someone has told me this saying in regards to my business is get rich in your niche.
Hmm.
And I feel like because a lawyer can speak on so many different topics because they're just so educated and well versed. still stay within your lane. They might be talking about
Mm,
something that is a little deviation or diversion from really what their niche is, because there's an opportunity, to be interviewed or speak on something. But the reality is just to be that authentic, this is what I really focus on, and being true to um, that topic, or that being that source and that resource, and not deviating too much. Because I think it's easy sometimes. Well, I do med mal, but I could talk about, I don't know, they do medical malpractice, but yet they're going to talk about something else. And I think that's not the right thing to do. I do real estate law, but I can talk about, uh, and it's silly analogies like criminal. I mean, it's not that extreme, but I feel like sometimes we get into situations where lawyers want to talk about more than what they're true. And that's okay, because they are, versed on so many things. But that's where I would say it kind of gets a little squirrely, and I would stay focused on, the lane that you're in.
I've seen that happen because I think like sometimes if you have a media opportunity, you're like, oh, I really want to jump on this. And, usually it's like, it's timely, you are either on deadline, it needs to happen like that day. I remember one time this one reporter contacted me and she wanted me to get a client, have them come to my office and interview them all within like an hour and a half. And I was like somewhere else in the city, and we actually pulled it off, which was insane because the client said yes, and everything happened. But anyway, but back to this point, I've realized that when you're live on things, or you don't want to sound like an idiot, like you probably want to it's probably wise to not burn your bridges with the media and just be like, I know someone who's the right person, so that even if you're not the right person for them that moment, they're going to love you for that, and they're going to either tell their media friends, or they're going to remember that you did the right call. You didn't take the interview that you shouldn't have taken, and you referred someone. And then the person you refer them to is going to love you because you referred them media. And so it can be a win-win, even though it feels like a loss, initial loss.
Yep. I totally agree. I think that I love the part about, I'll say that sometimes to people. Do you have a peer that you feel would, you'd want to do something good for, and maybe they'd be better versed? And then it does win them some points with the peer and with the media, to know, that they didn't just take it just to take it and then not execute it as well as they could. And you're right, the media as well. Wow, you know what, Ruby, I'm going to call her next time, because this wasn't exactly in her wheelhouse, and she sent us, you know, someone else that did a great job. So we're going to call Ruby next time we have something that's more, XYZ. So you're absolutely right. I think just taking something to take it as, um, can declining it can bode well, for you among some others too. Absolutely.
I think another thought that lawyers have with all the swimming in ethics and all this professional responsibility is that we might not want to involve a client because of confidentiality and yada yada, all that stuff. Like,
Yep.
what are some of the protocol that you would say for a lawyer to think go through? I mean, I get the client to. I mean, ideally, you sign something.
Yes.
I do. Anyway, what from your perspective, what do you usually suggest when you're advising lawyers on when to use clients and with the media?
Yeah. So, couple things. I would say, if we know the case is nearing an end, or we know that once we get a verdict and we think we know what the verdict's going to be and it's going to be great in our favor, I would say let's hold it till the end, and then put it out there, because that could be just great to showcase. Um and I feel like, you know, maybe, well, this is kind of awkward, but we've done this times too, where they're blacking out the individual's face,
Uh-huh.
and hiding their name and more of that anonymity. because we do want to get it out there, but we
Mhm.
can't disclose a lot. And some stations will do that, especially if there's like a crescendo. This is like maybe the case isn't over, but we can somehow, hide the individual for some impact and value. Then we've done that as well. Um, but I think that the integrity of the case is always number one. And we don't want to look Mickey Mouse or do anything that is not with the right professional foot forward. So I would say the best is when the case is over. But if the lawyer can talk about it in a context without the client, then we can do that. But I feel like the best is just to hold it until
Mhm.
the verdict at the end and then scream from the rooftops and, you know, be proud to share it. Something else we like to do in those situations too, it's just some fun leverage is maybe give it as an exclusive to
Mm.
a certain outlet.
Yeah.
You get maybe a little bit deeper relationship with that individual reporter. Maybe they'll do a bigger story because it wasn't just a pitch or a press release. You came to them and said, hey, we're going to put this out to the masses, but we're coming to you first. I always think that's a nice way to build a relationship with the media and, you know, give them a little bit more of the scoop
Yeah.
to put it out there
That's
before anyone else.
That's true. I remember that when I was more in the thick of it. And back to like some of the cases I was doing like a lot more in like 2018. Like that's why I chose like NPR for like an audio for one, and then like there was like which one would be the TV like exclusive and which one would be the print exclusive. But it's interesting now because even though there's like where I was on Houston Public Media last week, but they usually, even though that's like radio, now they're doing streaming, and they sometimes pull like print. They'll make an article, although well, not print, like a digital,
Yep.
whatever it's called.
But yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
like multiple. What's that called? Like multiple media
Outlets and
outlets.
platforms
Yeah,
and yep,
platforms, right?
yep.
But you're right about the exclusive, and in terms of like protecting the clients, so in immigration, like if a person gets deported, their lives really at risk in many cases. But then the media is like, we really want to get the story out, and I'm like, and so I've done a lot of that where like we just showed the hands or we showed the
Yeah.
feet, like little shoes, and then or we did like we the shadow and. It's really you have to go through a lot of little things like are you allowed to use a different name? So maybe they have four names and we're going to use just one of them or a nickname or like they want to verify who the really person is so that they can if show to their boss that they checked, but we're not going to go with that, but at least they know. Or the shadowing, the creative, you can be very creative. I've found it doesn't have to be just weird black, covering the
Yeah,
digital
yeah, yeah, yeah,
blurring or
yeah.
something like that. And but you pretty much have to ask because otherwise, what they really want is a full shot of everything, and you have to advocate for your client.
Yeah, and something you just said that resonated for me too is what you could do is take that media person along the journey. So maybe when you know that this case is starting, you've got that element. Maybe it's a package piece that they'll follow for a few months and, pitch it to them, see if they're interested. I'm going to be working on this case. And maybe they can, do something kind of beginning, middle, and end to kind of wrap it up. And again, that could go months, it could go whatever it is. It's not that they're doing it immediately and consecutively, but to kind of put together a big story of this journey of whatever that is. Um, and or, you can provide some of the photos or video that you have instead of just the media coming out and shooting it. You can provide it to them along with an interview. We always ask our client about assets and different assets that they have, photos, videos, B-roll, are all things that we can leverage with the media as well. Um, the biggest thing I've seen with a lot of our law firm clients are things that are seasonal and topical, but really trending, like what's happening in the news today. If there's something that relates to your firm and your practice, you better believe we're pitching that out ASAP. Something happens in the news today, we want you to be the one that's talking about it, because the media, as you know, they want to talk to an expert on a certain topic. And so that timely pitching and that timely outreach is really important, um, with most of our lawyers, because there could be something in the news today that you could be that expert talking about that topic and giving commentary.
I've had a lot of crazy stories. I should probably write these down. I don't know what I put in my book. I can't remember what I put on the marketing chapter, but I'm actually teaching about this later tonight in my class about
Oh,
marketing. So, and PR, an element of it. But one time I was supposed to have an interview and I got the time zones mixed up because it was for international TV. And I was literally on vacation, which is never when you never really get true vacation. I think when
yeah.
you're always like on, and I was getting a pedicure in Galveston with my daughter. I looked at my phone and I was like, wait, what? I was like literally like 15 minutes to the interview. So I asked the nail salon people, do you have a private room?
Oh my
So
gosh, that's
they
great.
gave, they gave me the waxing room.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, my daughter, like, stay here for a second. I'm gonna go and I like McDiver, whatever,
Yep.
a paper towel tower, put on my phone in a certain way. Somehow I had pearls, slicked back my swimming water hair, and tried to position it so that you couldn't see hands in was
Right.
all
Right in the background. Yeah.
synthetic.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
and then was hoping to goodness no one was going to open the door. It was only like maybe, a lot of times there's only like a few minutes, but
Yep.
you
Two
got
to
to
four
do it
minutes, I always say.
right,
Yeah.
right. And I like pulled it off, and it was just like I was so proud of myself. But it was like, oh my god, that was so stressful.
Yep. And sometimes in those situations, you don't have a lot of time to think or prepare. I mean, you did, you knew you
Yeah,
had it, you just were off on your timing. I understand that. But sometimes in those situations, it's even better. You didn't, you just jumped in and you were quick and on your feet and,
it was so
feeling
true.
kind of punchy and just did it.
Sometimes when I'm waiting around a few hours for a live like international TV interview, like it just like wears me out, exhausted and waiting. Like, what are they going to ask? And because
Yep.
they don't give you the exact questions, and then you have to be able to think on your feet and sound intelligent and talk in
Yep.
sound bites and not say something stupid. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you did perfect because I can tell, you're good at conversation and smart. But I do feel like sometimes people get in their head when they not prepare too much. There's definitely you need to prepare. But since you're knowledgeable on the topic, just
Yeah,
jumping in and going, sometimes people even do better when they're in those moments than, having too much time to prepare. But that's funny. We've definitely had, some of those, I call them zigzags, some of those zigzags for our clients as well. And with technology these days, you can kind of get away with it too.
that's
Um,
true. That's
and
true.
they
And
don't really
I
know.
usually like to keep like a cardigan or a
Yep.
jacket with me at any time because I never know what could possibly happen. But
We
that's
tell clients
sort
that
of,
all the time. Yep.
yeah, another good tip. Yeah. So I think like some people might be thinking, oh, you sound like you're talking about big PI firms and the verdicts and or maybe I don't know, big, but like how can you have the visibility on like any budget regardless of the size of firm? Maybe you're a true solo.
Yeah. So we have worked with the gamut, and I know peers of mine that work with law firms that are solo to larger practices. Um, yeah, I think just knowing your needs and your budget, of course, and maybe like for us, we do stuff with clients on like a project basis. So there's not an overly committed, proposal, contract and things like that, where they can just, maybe it's a tax lawyer or someone who's more in the tax realm. They're like, you know what, we see this window of time at end of year or in April or whatever it is. and, just do kind of these one-off projects to position them and put them out there during a time that really makes sense for their business to be out there, so they don't have to do a full commitment and, just be, overextended. Even time-wise, there's budget, but there's also time. If you're more of a one-person shop, it's hard to step away. Your time is money. And so if you're not billing those hours and you're doing a bunch of media, so you also want to make sure that the value is there for your time, not just the budget. Um, and so we map out a strategy. What are the goals, and what are we trying to achieve? But we also ask our clients their availability, because yeah. So I would say if you're a one person shop and you're like, oh, I can afford PR, I would also think about the time commitment, and not, we drive the bus for our clients, but the commitment of like, Ruby, we have an interview opportunity tomorrow at such and such time. Well, there's some flexibility, but for the most part, you don't want to decline that.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're one person and you're overextended, it makes it hard to do that. But I would say another easy thing for a solo person to do is to contact their local TV station if they do feel like they have a
Mm-hmm.
great story. Sometimes you don't need a PR firm to do all that for you. You can just, their news desk, or, their information is on their website, and reach out to them with something that you think is great. It may stick, it may not, but can't hurt in trying, especially if it is, something that might benefit the community knowing, and a broader audience benefiting from hearing about a situation, um, that might impact their community.
Yeah, I that's what I was gonna ask. Like, what's like one action step a firm could use to improve their PR right now, and to raise their visibility. Um, and one of the things, my cousin's a reporter. She told me, like, keep relationships going with all of the people. And what I have found is that they seem to change jobs every 2 to 3 years. And so I just sort of have to keep tabs on where they are. But usually their cell phone stays about the same. But having their email, their LinkedIn, and their cell phone. And then I usually send an email, every once in a while when there's some new changes, just to remind them I exist, maybe every quarter or so. Or if there's
Yeah.
something like breaking, and be like, hey, I could talk about that. Here's my cell phone. The other thing I've found is that training your staff, like, how to react, if there's a media inquiry, because sometimes it could get stuck in like the general inbox, but you need to like train your people, get it up to the channel fast to, what's the topic, when do you need it by, what's the mode of communication, is it video, audio, is you just need a quote that we could do it over maybe email, and trying to get that top, in center, and in the decision makers' minds.
Yeah, you're totally right. All of those things are totally on point. When I answered about reaching out to the news desks, just from their website info at, it does get to them. But of course, in the situation example you use, if you already interacted and have that reporter's information, then I would definitely maintain a regular little drip of
Mhm.
communication with them. They do change, like you said, and move around a lot, especially with COVID. We saw a lot more freelancers. So they
Hmm.
might be actually writing and working with multiple outlets.
Yeah.
And there might be some leverage there as well, to take advantage of. But, I think if you've got something great and compelling, put it out there. Be the one talking about it. Be the one to showcase your expertise, your firm, your name, your brand, to bring that, awareness to light. Um, but I mean, and social media is a free platform. There's no reason that everyone shouldn't be doing LinkedIn, and then maybe some version of Facebook and Instagram, to highlight what they're doing. Another thing with our expert clients like law firms, our rankings and award submissions. At least the local ones don't charge. There's some national ones that might have a fee associated with them, but that's another free opportunity. The Business Journal does one, or some of the legal trade publications do theirs. So I think that's another way to take advantage of building some brand and awareness is through some of those award submissions.
Yeah, we like to apply for as many awards as we can, even if we don't win. It's a good exercise of like I've had the same position for 16 years, but I still have to update my resume because
Yep.
usually all those awards or even like an RFQ or something, you might need a resume. So we
Yep.
just have a habit of keeping it up to date. Um, or even for a CLE the other day, I had to have my resume
Oh,
just for
yeah.
California. I don't know.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. Absolutely. So those award submissions, and that goes back to perception is reality. Oh, she's one of the top 10, blah, 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 or she's
Mhm.
one of the top 25 or the number one, or that's something to play with as well. That brings
Well,
serious credibility.
I know we're getting towards the end, but is there any like one liner you want to say about crisis or reputation management, or like what a firm should keep in mind if that were they need
There,
help?
yeah, I would say there is such a thing as bad PR. People
Okay.
are like, oh, there's no such thing as bad PR. Yeah, there is. Uh,
There's avoid
so
it.
that's something I would keep in mind for the practice themselves or even for their clients, is to be aware that just getting news and getting interviews isn't always, the best all the time.
Good point. Are you feeling overwhelmed by all the different things you have to do to run a law firm? Well, you're not alone. So many law firm owners are in the same boat. That's where Staffy steps in. More than 90 firms, just like yours, are leaning on their bilingual virtual staff for legal, administrative, marketing, and client facing work, plus their full HR support. I currently have 11 team members with Staffy across my own firm and Power Strategy Group, and it's been a total game changer. Schedule a free initial consultation at staffy.cc, that's stafi.cc, and use the code RUBY, RUBY, for $500 off. All right, fun fact questions at the very end before we wrap up. What's your favorite board game?
I would say I'm gonna go old school growing up, Shoots and Ladders.
Oh, we haven't had that one be the answer. Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Lots of
Um,
like ups, downs, ups, downs, ups,
Two
downs.
steps forward,
So
one step back. Where, yeah, I remember that
that would
one.
be it, Shoots and Ladders.
What would you consider your superpower?
Well, probably my ability to talk and speak and, not maybe in a courtroom per se. But I got senior most talkative in high school, and, talking and making conversation has never been anything challenging to me. So probably my ability to talk and speak.
Awesome. Well, and that can take you very far, as you've
Yeah.
already found out in your
Yeah.
career.
Yes. That's
Um,
funny.
what is a habit that you believe contributes to your success?
That's an easy one.
Okay.
My daily yoga.
Oh, okay. How
Yep.
long do you do that?
So every day for an hour,
Um,
on the weekend. Yeah, no, every day is an hour. And yeah, I need it every day in order for me to function. I do it before my day. I get up at 4:45 and on the weekends 6:45, but I have to do it. And that to me is like my balance, it's my escape. Um, Gets me really clear-headed and ready for the day. It's not woo-woo, it's a workout.
mhm.
But that element of just being there without phones and distractions and conversations and all the things, it helps me start my day.
I love that. Yeah, I notice if I don't work out before I start the day, it just throws everything off. And it's like I have to keep remembering that. And like,
Yep.
Ruby, I did Pilates this morning. I'm like, this is why
Oh,
today's a good day.
Pilates is another great one too. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's a favorite book or podcast you'd love to share with the audience?
Again, I'm gonna go old school. Who moved my cheese? Who moved the cheese? I feel
Mhm.
like change is like such a hard thing for people, and who moved the cheese or Yeah, who moved the cheese, my
Who,
cheese,
yeah,
whatever it is.
who moved
Um,
my cheese? Yeah, right.
yeah, it was about change and people accepting change and adapting to change. And we have a lot of that in the internal office world and the external world we live in. And I think it's really important to be adaptable and open to change.
No, it's so true. I owned that book for like 20 something years and then I finally opened it. And then I was like, dude, this is really good. And like I was liked all the little quotes and the little
Yeah.
adages and I was like, and I read it so fast because it's just a cute little story and like which is also another way to get a message across. And which is why people like the media because you're sharing a story of one of your clients' journeys usually or yourself. But no, that's a good reminder. I should probably read it every once in a while. That an oldie but a
Yes.
goodie.
Yes.
Well, Jennifer, how can people find you to stay in touch and learn more about you?
Yeah, I would say best would probably be the website just because all of our things are on there. Our email, our phone number, all the social media clicks is Evolve PR and spelled out marketing.com, Evolve PR and marketing.com.
Well, I really had a great time talking with you and sort of remembering some of my different media interactions. And, you know, I tried to put a lot of that in my book, Power Up Your Practice. And just because I think it's like a whole nother element that a lot of lawyers don't know that it's at their disposal, whether they either they try to go uh, on their own or they have a professional, which I highly suggest having a professional or a lot of mentorship and guidance because like you said about you couldn't have bad PR. But there's just so much to it. And I think it can help amplify your brand, your client story, which what I saw a lot was the advocacy for their journey and was even helped impact um, the way things were interpreted in in law for some cases that I worked on back in 2018, 19, and so I've been leaning more into that even more recently. Getting back on a media advocacy committee, so
Mm,
I'm really glad I got to talk with you today. And I think you know for anybody listening, this is a really great avenue for multiple facets to leverage your brand, your client, advocate, and you don't have to be afraid of it. You know, there's a lot of experts like Jennifer, and they can help guide you through, and it's sort of you can take you to a whole nother level with your career and help your clients, and you know, just it's a great skill set and it's a great avenue to leverage. So. Well,
thank you.
thanks everyone for listening. Thanks, Jennifer, for being on with me today. And will everyone feel free to stay in touch over school community, SKOOL. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to Power Up Your Practice. I'm Ruby Powers, and it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. We love your reviews. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us one and share this podcast with someone else so that they can know what you've been learning on our show. And make sure to check out the Power Up Your Practice book. It's available in paperback and Kindle on Amazon. It's packed with 25 chapters of strategies to grow and streamline your firm. And we also have the free Power Hub community on School to keep the conversation going in between the episodes. So make sure to keep powering up your practice, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you next time.